Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the World 4. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on live from the last day of SEC Media Days. And joining me, I say the best for last, SEC Mike from That SEC Podcast. Please go check them out on YouTube. Mike, let's jump right in here. Hugh Freeze went on Tuesday, and he expressed a lot of confidence in his team and the talent level on his team. You know, what were your impressions of Auburn this week at Media Days? I mean, you know, you've given me your thoughts on Auburn before, and you know, this is a prove-it year for them in year 3.
That's what I want to hear from Hugh Freeze, because Auburn should be, maybe not annually making the college football playoff. I think there's about 8 SEC programs that expect to go to the playoff annually. Auburn is in that group firmly. They can win a national championship there. That's what I want to be hearing from the coach. I don't want to hear bowl game. I want to hear college football playoff. So I'm glad that he at least corrected that.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing him kind of pivot, because the first 2 off seasons, all he talked about was a talent gap. We got to catch up to Georgia and Alabama. We've got to do better in recruiting. They've done that. Now, they're behind this year because they've chosen a different approach to this NIL discussion than some of the other schools. AD John Cohen seems very confident in Auburn's stance on whether the new rules will be enforceable or not. It's put them behind in recruiting. But a lot of the talk is going to be about Jackson Arnold, and it feels like Hugh Freeze's success and tenure at Auburn is riding on Jackson Arnold's arm this year.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught it, but Brent Venables was asked about Jackson Arnold and said, man, that guy's got a great, long future in football ahead of him. And really even said everything that happened poorly at Oklahoma last year was not on Jackson Arnold. So that's not something, and basically put it on Oklahoma and himself personally for what happened wrong with Jackson Arnold. I don't know that I've seen a coach come out and do something like that about a quarterback that left his program, but clearly Brent Venables is still very high on Jackson Arnold. And, I mean, that's, I think, the ultimate X factor in the entire SEC. I kind of question I think he fits what Hugh Freeze wants to do, but we all know Auburn turned the ball over at an incredibly high rate. That's what killed him last year. What killed Jackson Arnold last year? Turnovers. So mixing those two together could be disastrous, but if we clean that up, it could be dynamic. I mean, that's why I think Jackson Arnold at Auburn is the biggest X factor in the entire SEC.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. They certainly have the schedule, too, to make a splash this year. After the Georgia game, you get what should be a very different Missouri team. We heard from Eli Drinkwitz today. You get Arkansas, you get Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Mercer. That 5-game stretch could put Auburn in the playoff talk that Hugh Freeze is talking about going into the Iron Bowl.
I don't disagree with what you said, but I think you overlooked the start of the year because of where Auburn is. What happened last year, the expectations this year, opening at Baylor, opening at Oklahoma in conference play, and then backing that up with at Texas A&M. I mean, it's not crazy. I'm not predicting this, but it's not crazy to think Auburn starts 2-3. And can they survive that given this offseason? I don't know. But you're right. If let's say they go 4-1 or 5-0, dream scenario, if they go 5-0, I think they're going to make the college football playoff with the back half. But the first half, you got to survive at first. I think bare minimum, you got to be 3-2, and you can still have a really, really good year. But anything less than that, man, I don't know. I don't know. We know things that can happen on the plains. I mean, it'll get very interesting very quick.
Yeah, which I want to go next. Hugh Freeze and the potential hot seat that he is on. Look, he's espousing a lot of confidence in year 3, but this is always where Auburn was expected to be in year 3 under Hugh Freeze. Look, they just got to win football games, Mike. You know, they were a 5-7 football team. They had better than 5-7 talent last year. And I think that as much as he talked about the player and the talent gap, there was a coaching gap the first 2 years.
Yeah, no doubt. But they should have an advantage against Baylor, even though the more I hear Baylor's got a good team, that's fantastic. The only problem there, that could be Baylor's Super Bowl, because if they're trying to make the playoff, they need an impressive win. They got to beat an SEC team. I always feel like these SEC teams, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but when they go on the road to these games, it's a tough environment because it's almost like Baylor wants to beat the whole conference so bad to prove that that's a legitimate program. So that's a tricky game, but I do think Auburn should beat it based purely, like you're saying, on talent and even coaching. I question Dave Aranda, how good of I know he's an elite defensive coordinator. Is he a very good head coach? I think that remains to be seen. And then even Oklahoma, I know it's on the road, but let's be fair, that's not one of the most hostile environments in this conference. And that's another program. They play Michigan week 2. They could be careening towards a horrible year, even by week 4.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Look, that week 1 game, as you mentioned, at Baylor is going to be critical if Auburn wants to get out of that first 6-game stretch 4-2. I think 4-2, you're in a prime position over the back. 3-3, because we got to remember, they capped that first 6 games with Georgia at home. That's an L until further notice, man. They hadn't beat Georgia since 2017. Kirby's been waxing that ass up and down the field for years now. But you need a signature win if you're Hugh Freeze this year. I argued earlier this week that they don't have one in his first 2 years. Some people pointed to Texas A&M last year, 4 OTs. I don't think that qualifies as a signature win. If Auburn is to have a signature win this year, would Baylor qualify? You know, obviously Alabama or Georgia would qualify, but outside of those 2 teams, do you see a signature win potentially on the schedule?
I wouldn't qualify Baylor as that. Maybe if Hugh Freeze was still out here saying, hey, we're trying to make a bowl game, because they'll make a bowl game if they beat Baylor. But now he's saying playoff. So now I think it has to be Georgia. And they're getting them at home. Heck, they almost beat him 2 years ago, if not for the superhuman Brock Bowers, he's gone on to the NFL. He's just as superhuman there, too. If they didn't have that guy, they would have beat Georgia that day. I think Auburn's light years ahead talent-wise than they were that day. I actually think Georgia's taken a couple steps back. I think they're closer to the pack. We're talking a hostile environment, Gunnar Stockton on the road, and that'll be after Georgia plays Bama. And we know what happens every time Georgia and Bama. I don't care where the game's played. Bama's going to win that football game. So Georgia could be a banged-up, a hurting football team. I think he needs that signature win, and I think Georgia is attainable this year for Auburn.
SEC Mike picking Bama over Georgia early. I love that prediction. Mike, before we get out of here, give me a prediction here on Auburn's season. Again, I think you're tough but fair on Auburn and Hugh Freeze. This is the most manageable schedule I think Auburn has had in quite some time. The elimination of divisions has opened the door for Auburn to have an SEC East type schedule like Georgia would have, with Vanderbilt and Kentucky on the schedule and LSU and Ole Miss off the schedule. Give me a number here before we get out of here, a prediction. Auburn's record is what and why?
Yeah, let me clarify something real quick. Not an Auburn hater. I'm a Hugh Freeze hater. But if Jackson Arnold hits, give me Auburn 8-4. I think they could even go 9-3 if they beat. Let's say if they beat Georgia 9-3, I'm pretty firm on that. But if he's not as good, Jackson Arnold, I think they're closer to 7-5, 6-6, which should not be good enough at Auburn. But I don't think if they make a bowl game, I think Hugh Freeze is back. If they go 5-7 or worse, they're going to fire him.
Yeah, I think 7 wins even would be a tough sell. I don't think firing should be off the table at 7-5, honestly, with this schedule. It's just me. SEC Mike, I want to thank you for joining me today on the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. Guys, if you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. I want to thank our sponsors today, the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Also want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden's Cast Iron. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Also want to thank our friends at the Vibe Vault. If you want to get fresh for the weekend, visit the Vibe Vault. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. And I want to thank our friends at CameraGraphics.net for providing all the wonderful equipment today that we shot today's interview on. Last but certainly not least, SetsForSociety.ai. If you want to learn more about yourself and about your team and how you work well with a team, visit SetsForSociety.ai. They have an interesting personality test that you can take to see how you learn, how your team learns, and what kind of coworker, what kind of teammate you are. Visit testforsocietyai.com to get started today. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Guys, we're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.